Okay, this is quadratic formula video part 1. There's going to be 3 parts to this, and this is going to help you with your 13-1 assignment. Okay, quadratic formula is something that you can use to solve any quadratic. Yes, it works on any quadratic, so you don't have to factor, you don't have to complete the square, but it's not necessarily easy. Okay. The first thing you have to be able to do for quadratic formula, this is quadratic formula down here. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So this is how we find out what x is. Okay, notice there's a plus and a minus sign that helps us find both of our solutions. But we need to know a, b, and c so we can sub them in. So remember, a, b, and c are just the coefficients and constants in front of each term. So the a, b, and c for this quadratic would be 2, negative 5, and 17. Okay, remember the sign in front of that 5, that negative comes down and becomes a negative. Negative 4. Oh, I don't see a number in front of the x. Well, remember there's an invisible 1 there. And negative 12. There's an invisible 1 between the negative sign and the x. 2 and negative 1. Very important. Quadratic must be set equal to 0 for the quadratic formula to work. Okay? So the quadratic formula is a strategy to solve quadratic equations, and it can be used on any quadratic. Be very careful with signs. This says negative b. If my b is already negative and then I'm taking the negative of it, that'll end up being positive. Okay? So we'll show examples of that along the way. Okay, so here's our first quadratic that we're going to use quadratic formula on. I got the formula up here at the top. We need to know a, b, and c. So we've got a is 1, b is negative 7, and c is negative 8. It's equal to 0, so we can do our a, b, and c. Now what I'm going to show you next through the magic of Promethean boards is sub in. So here's the quadratic formula with spaces left where the letters were. So negative b, here's an example where I'm going to have a negative, negative 7. So when I reveal down here the equation with everything subbed in, you'll see where negative, negative 7 becomes positive. Then I put a negative 7 in for squared, minus 4 times a and c. Okay, why is it a 4? If you're really interested where the 2 and the 4 come from, why is it a fraction? Where's the square root come from? Why is the b negative? It's in your textbook in the 13-1 section. It pretty much takes an entire page to explain it to you. It's not really important that you know where the quadratic formula comes from. You don't even have to memorize the quadratic formula. It's given to you on your Regents sheet. So I just care that you know how to use it. So first, we're subbing in our numbers. Okay, and what that looks like when I write it down correctly is this. Okay, the 7 becomes positive for here because we are taking the negative of a negative b. Then negative 7 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 8 all over 2 times 1. So that's our first phase, is to sub in. Next, we're going to take this stuff underneath the radical sign. There's a fancy name for it. It's the discriminant, but right now I just care that you take the part that's under the square root and simplify it in your calculator. You can literally type it just the way you see it. So parenthesis, negative 7, parenthesis, squared, minus 4, parenthesis, 1, parenthesis, parenthesis, negative 8. Whoops, I missed the negative sign. Okay, it's very important. If you make a typo, this will not come out correctly. Let me pull this out so you can see it a little bit bigger. Okay, so I typed this part in exactly the way that I saw it right here and I get 81. Okay? And that is my next step. Okay, I simplified the radical part to square root of 81. Okay, now square root of 81, 81 is one of our perfect squares. So our next step is to take the square root and we're going to split it into positive and negative. So I'm bringing down 7 plus and 2 and 7 minus and 2 and the plus 9 root and the minus 9 root. Then, lastly, I'm just going to simplify what I have left. So 7 plus 9 is 16. Bring down the divide by 2. 7 minus 9 is negative 2. Divide by 2. And x equals 8 and x equals negative 1. And those are my two solutions. Okay, this next problem was actually a quiz question that you solved by factoring. You took out the 5 and then you factored what was left and you got the solutions. Now, if I was doing this problem, factoring is still the easier way to go. But I'm going to use it again just to show you that you can do quadratic formula if you want to. First of all, check, make sure it's equal to 0. Yep, check, got that. A, B, and C. Okay, then we're subbing in. Negative 45. 45 squared minus 4 times 5 and times 100 and 2 times 5. And when it's all subbed in, it looks like that. So negative 45 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Here again, we're going to simplify the radical. Oh, and by the way, I do the 2 times 5 at the same time, but that's pretty easy. Okay? So negative 45 plus or minus, if I type all this in my calculator, I get 25. Oh, it's a perfect square. Isn't that nice? And 2 times 5 is 10. Then I'm going to take 25 and do the square root. But there's a positive and a negative square root to 25. It's both a plus 5 and a minus 5. The negative 45 and the 10 both just come down. So I've split it into its two parts, one with a positive 5, one with a negative 5. And then I'm just simplifying. So negative 45 plus 5 is negative 40. Negative 45 minus 5 is negative 50. And my answers are negative 4 and negative 5. My next example, it's not equal to 0. There's a negative 2 after the equal sign, and I need that to not be there. I have to move it over here. In order to move it to the left-hand side of the equal, I have to add it to both sides. So I get 2b squared minus 17b plus 21 equals 0. Then I can get my A, B, and C. A, B, and C. So then I can sub in negative 17. Oh, look, we're going to have a negative, negative again. B, A, C, all over 2A. Okay, so I have a negative, negative 17, which remember makes a positive 17. Simplify everything in the radical and the bottom. And this top, the radical, simplifies to the square root of 121, and 2 times 2 is 4. Then I'm splitting my root to be plus 11 and minus 11. Now, I'm telling you right now, your homework is going to have ones where the radicand is not a perfect square. But just to get into using the formula, I've decided not to add that element of difficulty for today's video. It's going to be in the next video. What do you do if the square root is not a perfect square? Okay? So we got plus 11 and minus 11. I'm going to continue to simplify that. 17 plus 11 is 28 over 4, and 17 minus 11 is 6 over 4. and then divide that out. 7 and 1.5 would be your solutions. Okay, here is yet another problem that I know we did in class, and we solved by factoring, but I'm going to use it as an example of quadratic formula. It's also not equal to 0. These terms cannot be here. I need to move them both to the other side. So I do that by doing opposite signs. Now on this side, I'm canceling them right underneath. So 3x squared minus 3x squared, cancel. Minus 6 plus 6, cancel. But when I get to this side of the equal, I'm going to put them underneath their like terms. So minus 3x squared under the 18x squared and a plus 6 under the minus 2. And I get 15x squared minus 17x plus negative 2 plus 6 is 4 equals 0. Now it's set equal to 0, and if I can find them, there's my A, B, and C, which I can then sub in. Negative 17, negative 17 squared minus 4 times 15 times 4 all over 2 times 15. Subbing in. We're going to put all of this into our calculator and that separately. You know, actually 2 times 15, I hope you know, is 30 without the calculator. This top, this radical simplifies to 49, and 2 times 15 is 30. The square root of 49 is both a positive 7 and a negative 7. So I'm going to do both scenarios. 17 plus 7 over 30 and 17 minus 7 over 30. So I get 24 over 30 and 10 over 30. Now these both come out decimals. That's okay. That's okay. So 24 over 30 is 0.8 and 10 over 30 is 0.3 repeating. Now, as a video watcher, you're going to get an exclusive. On the calculator, there's a little cheat. If you go and you turn it on, clear this. Instead of doing all these steps, this only works, I will say this only works if you are allowed to answer in the form of a decimal. If you have to answer in radical form, then this is not helpful. Okay? You're going to type alpha, y equals, and that brings up the fraction menu. So n over d. Hit enter. Then, I know this is really tiny, but when I'm done, I will pull it out so you can see it. In fact, let me go to a blank page here so I can see it. Okay. Okay, so alpha y equals n over d is a fraction. Okay, it's really tiny. I will blow it up and pull it on the screen. If you set yourself up as a fraction, you can type in, all you have to do is the sub in part on your paper, then you can type in everything else. Okay, so alpha y equals, then I can type in 11. Now, I can't do plus or minus, so I'm just going to go through once with a plus. Whoops. Plus square root, and then like literally everything you see. I see a parenthesis, I type a parenthesis. Negative 11, close parenthesis, squared, minus 4 times 1 times 28. All over 2 times 1. And I get to skip all the work because it just spits out the answer. One of my solutions is x equals 7. So that's one of my solutions. Okay? Now, I don't want to retype all of this all over again into the calculator, but I have to get the other root with the minus sign in front of the radical. Well, I don't want to type it all in, and you don't have to. Hit second, enter, and it retypes everything that you want that you typed in your previous problem, and you just use your arrows to go to where you want to go. So I would go up into my problem, I would arrow in, and I would arrow right over to that plus sign, switch it to a minus, and hit enter. Let me blow that up big for you. Okay, so I didn't have to retype all that. I hit second, enter, and just went back and changed that minus sign. And I got my second root, my second answer, which is x equals 4. Very cool. Again, you can only do this. You can only do this if the directions say you're allowed to answer as a decimal. Okay? All right, thanks for watching. And remember, there'll be 2 more videos to go with 13.1. Thanks. Bye.